Two countries, separated by more than 1,500 kilometers. They don't share a border. They don't fight traditional wars. Yet they are locked in one of the most dangerous rivalries on Earth: Iran and Israel. Missiles have been launched. Cyber attacks have been carried out. Scientists have been assassinated. Militias across the Middle East fight battles connected to this conflict. And every year, the tension grows. Many experts fear that if this rivalry explodes into full-scale war, the entire Middle East could be dragged into the conflict. But here is the shocking truth. Iran and Israel were not always enemies. In fact, for decades, they were secretly allies. They traded oil, shared intelligence, and quietly helped each other survive in a hostile region. So how did two countries that once cooperated behind the scenes become two of the most bitter enemies in modern geopolitics? The answer lies in a story filled with revolutions, secret alliances, proxy armies, and a hidden war that has lasted more than 40 years. To understand this rivalry, we must go back to the moment when everything changed. Because the conflict between Iran and Israel didn't begin with missiles. It began with a revolution. Today, it may sound unbelievable, but there was a time when Iran and Israel worked closely together. To understand why, we have to go back to the early years after Israel was created. In 1948, the modern state of Israel was established. Many countries in the Middle East rejected its existence. Several wars followed. But one powerful country in the region quietly chose a different path: Iran. At that time, Iran was ruled by a king known as Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi. The Shah wanted to modernize Iran and strengthen ties with Western countries. Israel also wanted strong allies in the region. So, despite political tensions across the Middle East, Iran and Israel began building a relationship. And much of it happened behind the scenes. Iran supplied oil to Israel. Israeli companies worked on projects inside Iran. Their intelligence agencies even cooperated. Both countries had a similar problem. They were surrounded by hostile governments. So the partnership made strategic sense. For years, the relationship remained relatively stable. But beneath the surface, Iran itself was changing. Many people inside the country were unhappy with the Shah's rule. They believed the government had become corrupt. They also believed Iran had become too influenced by Western powers. Religious leaders began criticizing the Shah. Protests slowly began to grow. And by the late 1970s, Iran was on the edge of a massive political explosion. A revolution that would completely transform the country. And when that revolution finally happened, Iran's relationship with Israel would collapse almost overnight. In 1979, millions of people flooded the streets across Iran. The protests were massive. The government struggled to maintain control. Eventually, the Shah fled the country. The monarchy that had ruled Iran for decades was finished. A new leader soon emerged, a powerful religious figure named Ruhollah Khomeini. Khomeini had a very different vision for Iran. He believed the country should become an Islamic republic. Under his leadership, religion would play a central role in politics. The revolution transformed the entire nation, but it also completely changed Iran's foreign policy. Countries that had once been allies suddenly became enemies, and Israel was one of them. The new Iranian government declared strong opposition to Israel. The Israeli embassy in Tehran was shut down. In a powerful symbolic move, the building was handed over to representatives of the Palestinian cause. From that moment forward, Iran positioned itself as a strong supporter of Palestinians. Israel was now described by Iran's leadership as an illegitimate state. The alliance between the two countries was gone, and a new phase of hostility had begun. But the conflict would not happen in a typical way, because Iran and Israel do not share borders. Instead, the rivalry began spreading across the Middle East, through influence, through alliances, and through armed groups that would become major players in the region. This was the beginning of a shadow war. After the revolution, Iran began expanding its influence across the region. Instead of confronting Israel directly, Iran supported groups that opposed Israel. These groups became part of a wider network, often called the Axis of Resistance. One of the most powerful groups in this network emerged in Lebanon, Hezbollah. Formed during the conflicts of the 1980s, Hezbollah received support from Iran. Over time, it developed into a powerful military and political force. Hezbollah now possesses thousands of rockets, many capable of reaching Israeli cities. Iran also developed connections with Palestinian militant organizations, including Hamas. These alliances allowed Iran to pressure Israel from multiple directions, from Lebanon in the north, from Gaza in the south, and through influence in countries like Syria and Iraq. Israel saw this as a growing threat, so it responded with covert operations. Israeli intelligence carried out secret missions targeting Iranian military assets. Airstrikes were launched against Iranian positions in Syria. Cyber warfare became another battlefield. One of the most famous cyber attacks in history targeted Iran's nuclear facilities. The virus was known as Stuxnet. For years, this shadow war remained mostly hidden from the public. But recently, something changed. The conflict began moving out of the shadows, and the world started seeing direct confrontations between Iran and Israel. Today, the rivalry between Iran and Israel is considered one of the most dangerous geopolitical conflicts in the world, because if it turns into full-scale war, the consequences could be enormous. Iran has developed powerful missile technology. It also maintains alliances with armed groups across several countries. Israel, on the other hand, possesses one of the most advanced militaries in the region. It also has strong international partnerships, especially with the United States. If war broke out between them, it might not remain limited to just two countries. It could involve Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Gaza, and possibly global powers. Another major factor is Iran's nuclear program. Israel has repeatedly warned that it will not allow Iran to develop nuclear weapons. This issue has already caused cyber attacks, sabotage operations, and targeted assassinations. Every year, the tension continues to rise, and the possibility of escalation remains. Yet, despite all the hostility, both countries still avoid full-scale war, because the consequences could be catastrophic for the entire region. For now, the conflict remains a mixture of threats, covert operations, and proxy battles. But the question the world keeps asking is simple. Will this remain a shadow war, or will it become the next major conflict in the Middle East? Because the rivalry between Iran and Israel is more than just a political dispute. It is a story of history, ideology, power, and survival. And its next chapter could shape the future of the entire region.